You've probably heard of rich Canadian, but there are a few families that control the stuff we eat, the banks we trust, the media we read, and even parts of the government. Let's look at a few of them, and by the end of this video, you'll realize you've been living in their world the whole time. Weston Family. Let's start with the Weston family. They've turned everyday groceries into a billion-dollar empire. It began way back in 1882 with George Weston, a young Toronto baker who bought a bread route. His son, Garfield Weston, took it international, buying bakeries and stores in the US and UK. But it was the third generation, led by Galen Weston Sr., that turned things into an empire. They own Loblaw companies, which run Superstore, No Frills, and the ever-present President's Choice and No Name brand. Then they bought Shoppers Drug Mart for $12.4 billion. At one point, they even owned high-end department stores like Holt Renfrew in Canada and Selfridges in London, which they sold for over $5 billion. Their holding company, George Weston Limited, controls their entire retail kingdom, while their private family office manages their wealth. The current public face is Galen G, who's the fourth generation. They've donated hundreds of millions to universities, hospitals, and museums, but behind the scenes, they control how millions of Canadians shop, eat, and live. Desmarais Family. Now, the Desmarais family, not as famous, but definitely powerful. Their empire began with Paul Desmarais Sr., who saved his wife's family's failing bus company in the 1950s. He didn't stop there. In 1968, he took over Power Corporation of Canada, which he turned into a massive financial empire. Today, Power Corp owns or controls companies like Great West Lifeco, IGM Financial, and a huge chunk of Wealthsimple, one of Canada's top fintech platforms. Their total financial footprint is worth over $40 billion, but their real power is in politics. Paul Sr. was close friends with multiple prime ministers, from Pierre Trudeau to Brian Mulroney, and his son, André Desmarais, married Jean Chrétien's daughter. That means for decades, the family was literally in the room where decisions were made. Their Sagar estate in Quebec is more like a private kingdom than a vacation home. Even though their media holdings carry weight, they used to own La Presse and still have major connections across Canadian media. And despite being ridiculously wealthy, they're quiet about it. No flash, just control, strategy, and long-term planning that's lasted through 3 generations. Irving Family. The Irving family might be the most low-key billionaires in the country, unless you live in New Brunswick, where their name is everywhere. It started with K.C. Irving in the 1920s, who built a business empire in oil, forestry, shipping, and newspaper. Irving Oil runs the largest oil refinery in Canada, located in St. John, producing over 320,000 barrels per day. That's a refinery worth over $2 billion on its own. But it's not just oil. The family owns over 1 million hectares of timberland, making them one of the largest private landowners in the country. They control J.D. Irving Limited, which runs lumber mill, paper factories, shipyards, railroads, and even grocery distribution. They're also one of the largest employers in Eastern Canada, with more than 16,000 workers on their payroll. On top of that, they own most of the local newspapers in the province, so they control the news too. Everything is kept in the family, passed down and divided among K.C. Irving's sons and now grandson. They don't crave publicity, but their grip on Atlantic Canada's economy is so strong, it's almost like a country within a country. Bronfman Family. The Bronfman family built their empire on liquor, but their story is about more than just booze. It all started with Seagram, the global alcohol giant founded by Samuel Bronfman. For decades, it was the biggest distiller in the world, and the Bronfmans were one of the richest families in North America. In the 90s, Edgar Bronfman Jr. made a high-stakes bet. He sold Seagram's liquor division to invest in entertainment. The deal led to a merger with Universal Studios and Vivendi, which ended up crashing hard. They lost billions. But don't feel too bad. The family still has money in real estate, private equity, and tech. Charles Bronfman became a major philanthropist, giving away over $350 million to Jewish causes, universities, and hospitals. Today, their wealth is managed through Claret, which owns massive properties and investments across Canada and the US. They've got luxury condos, art collections, and stakes in some of the biggest growth companies in the country. Even after that financial disaster, they've stayed rich and relevant. The Bronfmans are proof that when you're rich enough, even your losses can't take you out of the billionaire club. Thompson Family. Then there's the Thompson family, the quiet kings of Canadian wealth. They're worth over $60 billion, and that's a conservative estimate. It all started in 1931 when Roy Thompson, a barber's son, bought a radio station in North Bay, Ontario. He turned it into a newspaper empire, buying papers in Canada and the UK, including the Sunday Times. In 1964, he was made a British lord. That's how powerful he became. But it was his son, Kenneth Thompson, who took the smart turn. Kenneth ditched the traditional media business and focused on financial data, leading to the $17 billion merger with Reuters in 2008. That deal created Thomson Reuters, one of the world's biggest sources for legal and business data. The family still owns a controlling stake through their holding company, Woodbridge. They also own the Globe and Mail and have invested in Bell Canada. David Thompson, the current family head, is super proud private. He rarely gives interviews or even appears in public. But don't be fooled. They quietly influence everything from stock markets to government policy. And Kenneth's art collection, which he donated to the Art Gallery of Ontario, was worth over $300 million alone. When it comes to old money, no one does it better than the Thompson. McCain family. If you've ever had frozen fries or pizza from the grocery store, you've probably supported the McCain family's fortune. It all started in 1957 in Florenceville, New Brunswick, a tiny town where brothers Wallace and Harrison McCain launched McCain Food. They started with frozen French fries, and within a few decades, they turned it into the largest frozen food company in the world. Today, McCain Foods operates in over 160 countries and rakes in more than $11 billion annually. Their empire includes not just fries and appetizers, full meals, desserts, and massive food service contracts with global fast food chains like McDonald's and Burger King. And while the family had its share of drama, Wallace got pushed out by his brother and later co-founded Maple Leaf Food. The money never stopped flowing. They've invested heavily in farmland, processing plants, transportation, and even renewable energy. Their private estates stretch across the country, including luxury waterfront homes in New Brunswick and Toronto. They're also known for massive philanthropy, donating millions to Canadian universities, hospitals, and the art. For a family that literally made its fortune on potatoes, the McCains now hold a seat at Canada's wealthiest table. Molson Family. This family practically invented Canadian beer culture. The Molson family started brewing back in 1786 when John Molson opened his first brewery in Montreal. That's over 230 years ago, making it one of the oldest companies in the country. Today, Molson Coors is a global powerhouse, producing brands like Coors Light, Molson Canadian, Miller Lite, and even Blue Moon. Their beer is sold in more than 50 countries, and the business pulls in over $10 billion in annual revenue. But the Molsons didn't stop with beer. They invested in banking, railroads, and even helped build the Bank of Montreal. Their family name is everywhere, on university building, hospital, and even the Bell Centre, home of the Montreal Canadiens, which they co-own. Their wealth has been carefully passed down for over 6 generations, with various family members running parts of the business or managing investments through their private holding company. Despite their legacy, the Molsons are far from old news. They're still active in major business deals, luxury real estate, and elite philanthropy. Richardson family. Quiet but massively powerful, the Richardson family has influenced the Canadian economy for more than 160 years. Based in Winnipeg, their empire began in the 1850s with grain trading, which then evolved into one of the largest agricultural businesses in the country. Today, Richardson International is a giant in agribusiness, controlling grain elevators, food processing plants, and oilseed crush facilities across North America. They're not just moving wheat, they're moving global food supply chain, but that's just part of the picture. The family also runs James Richardson and Son, a holding company with assets in energy, real estate, and private equity. They own Tundra Oil and Gas, which produces thousands of barrels per day from Western Canada, and they manage billions through their Richardson Financial. And yes, they've got deep pockets. Their total holdings are estimated to be well over $10 billion, and they live like it too, with luxury homes, art collections, and even private jets. Still, they stay out of the spotlight. Their name doesn't pop up in tabloids, but it does appear in libraries, science centers, and business schools. The Richardsons may not make noise, they make big moves. Morgan Family. Not as globally famous as some others on this list, but in Canada's Atlantic provinces, the Morgan family is a heavyweight. They made their fortune in fish. That's right, seafood built this empire. The story starts with Clearwater Seafood, founded by brothers John Risley and Colin McDonald, but the Morgan family became heavily tied in through investment, ownership, and expansion. Clearwater grew into the largest shellfish company in North America, exporting lobsters, scallops, and clams to over 40 countries. In 2020, the company was sold in a $1 billion deal that included a coalition of Mi'kmaq First Nations and premium brands, with the Morgans cashing out big. But seafood was just the beginning. The family now invests in shipping, fisheries technology, and international logistics. They also own prime real estate along the coast, including luxury developments in Halifax and Nova Scotia. Their private assets include yachts, heritage properties, and shares in local infrastructure projects. The Morgans aren't flashy, but their influence in Atlantic Canada is hard to ignore. From ocean to boardroom, they've turned regional roots into global reach. Saputo family. If you've eaten cheese in Canada, there's a good chance it came from the Saputo family's empire. This Montreal-based family built one of the largest dairy processing companies in the world, and they did it starting from a tiny home operation. In 1954, Italian immigrant Giuseppe Saputo started making cheese by hand with his son Lino. Fast forward to today, Saputo Inc. is a $16 billion company selling milk, cheese, and dairy products across Canada, the US, Australia, the UK, and Argentina. They produce popular brands like Armstrong, Dairyland, Timberland and Nielsen, Lino Saputo became a billionaire and passed the business to his son, Lino Jr., who now runs it as CEO. Besides dairy, the family owns luxury real estate, vineyards in Italy, and even private aviation company. Their private family holding manages multiple investments, and they've donated millions to children's hospitals and sports programs across Quebec. Despite past controversies around alleged mafia ties, which Lino Sr. denied and was never charged for, the family has remained firmly at the top of Canada's food industry. The Saputo name is a staple in fridges across the country, but behind the scenes, it's also a symbol of calculated generational wealth. If you enjoyed checking into the secret world of Canadian wealth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which family surprised you the most. There's a lot more where this came from, and trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next.